This person is yours. Don't give up on him. Carl Jung. There are moments in life when someone appears and suddenly nothing feels random anymore. You can trace the timeline backward and try to explain it logically, but your heart already knows that logic was never in charge here. This person did not simply walk into your life. They arrived, and when they did, something inside you shifted, quietly but permanently. Even now, when you try to move on, when you tell yourself it is over, when you attempt to rationalize the distance, there is a force that keeps pulling your awareness back to them, not with desperation, but with recognition. If this message has found you today, it is not an accident. Meaningful messages always arrive when the soul is ready to hear them. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." And right now, something inside you is awakening, a knowing that refuses to be silenced, a feeling that says this connection was not created to be easily erased. You may have reached a point where you feel torn between holding on and letting go, torn between trusting what you feel and doubting yourself because of what you see. Silence has a way of amplifying doubt. Distance can make even the strongest heart question its own truth. You may have wondered if you imagined the depth, if you projected meaning where none existed, but if it were imagination, it would have faded. Illusions dissolve when tested by time. This did not. Your soul refuses to release this person, and that refusal has a reason. Time did not weaken it. Pain did not destroy it. Attempts to disconnect did not free you. Instead, every effort to walk away seemed to circle you back inward, back to the same quiet realization. This person matters. Not in the way the ego wants, but in the way the soul recognizes. This is not about obsession. Obsession is loud, anxious, demanding. What you feel is quieter, deeper. It lives beneath the noise of thoughts and expectations. It waits patiently. It surfaces in moments of stillness, in dreams, in sudden waves of emotion that arrive without warning. It is the feeling of unfinished meaning. When you first encountered this person, something ancient stirred. It wasn't attraction alone. It wasn't compatibility on paper. It was familiarity without memory. A sense that you had known them before this lifetime ever introduced you. The conversation may have been simple, but the energy was not. Your nervous system recognized safety and intensity at the same time. That paradox is rare, and it leaves a mark. Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. You are transformed. And whether you see it or not, so were they." Connections that change us are never casual. They rearrange something internal. They open doors that cannot be closed again. Even now, even in distance, even in silence, they feel you more than they show. Some people experience emotions inwardly and express them outwardly. Others do the opposite. Silence does not mean absence of feeling. Sometimes it means too much feeling with nowhere to place it. Your presence awakens something in them that they were not prepared to manage. And instead of leaning into it, they step back, hoping space would quiet what you stirred. It didn't. Energy does not need words to travel. In their quiet moments, when distractions fade, you surface. Not because they want you to, but because the connection insists. They replay conversations. They remember how you made them feel seen. They notice the contrast between your presence and the emotional flatness of everything else, and that comparison unsettles them. They are not distant because they do not care. They are distant because they do. There are battles inside them you were never meant to fight for them. Old wounds, Fear of vulnerability. Fear of losing control. Fear of being exposed at a depth they cannot yet hold. For some people, love feels unsafe, not because of the other person, but because of what it reveals within themselves. This is where many connections fracture. One soul awakens faster. The other resists the mirror being held up to them. You became that mirror. You reflected parts of them they had buried, and instead of rejecting you, they retreated from themselves. Jung described this when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Right now, they are being directed by what they have not yet faced. Awakening cannot be undone. You cannot unsee what you have seen. You cannot unknow what you now know. You entered their life to remind them of emotional truth, of tenderness, of authenticity. You reached a place inside them that had been asleep. That kind of touch does not vanish. It lingers, reshapes, waits. The universe does not waste encounters. If this connection were meant to end quietly, it would have done so. Instead, it echoes, in signs that catch your attention, in dreams that feel more real than waking life, in moments where their name arises without effort. These are not distractions. They are signals, not telling you to chase, but telling you to trust what is unfolding beyond your control. There is a difference between forcing a door open and knowing it will open when aligned. Your exhaustion is valid. Loving deeply without clarity is heavy. But your hope is not weakness. It is intuition. And intuition does not scream. It waits. Right now, something is shifting beneath the surface. Not visibly yet, but internally. The resistance is weakening. The fear is being challenged. The heart that once closed is softening under the weight of its own truth. And whether they admit it or not, the thought of losing you completely is becoming more frightening than the thought of trying again. This is not the end of the story. It is the pause before understanding, the space where growth happens, the silence where alignment prepares itself. You are not being asked to wait blindly. You are being asked to stay rooted in yourself, to remain open without abandoning your own balance. Jung also said, patience is the key to joy. Not passive patience, but grounded patience. The kind that trusts timing without sacrificing self-respect. The kind that knows when something is real, it does not require force. As this message settles into you, notice what resonates without effort. Truth does not need convincing. It simply lands. And if your heart feels calmer instead of more anxious, that is your confirmation. The connection is not broken. It is transforming. And in this space of transformation, you are being shaped just as much as they are. That is something the mind often resists, because the mind wants resolution, labels, timelines. But the soul works differently. The soul uses uncertainty as a refining fire. It strips away illusions, dependencies, and false expectations until only truth remains. What you are experiencing now is not waiting. It is becoming. You may notice that since this connection entered your life, you are no longer the same person you were before. Your emotional awareness has deepened. Your standards have sharpened. You can no longer tolerate shallow connections or half-present love. Something inside you refuses to settle for anything less than what feels aligned, safe, and real. That is not coincidence. That is the imprint of a soul-level encounter. Sometimes a connection does not come to stay immediately. Sometimes it comes to awaken you first, to show you what is possible, to reveal what your heart actually needs, not what it was conditioned to accept. And once that awakening happens, you cannot return to sleep. Even if the person is absent, the truth they activated remains alive within you. This is why letting go feels impossible right now. Not because you are clinging to a person, but because you are holding on to a truth about yourself that was born through them. You learned how deeply you can feel, how open your heart can be, how capable you are of emotional presence and devotion. And the soul does not abandon its own expansion. You may also feel moments of doubt rising unexpectedly. Thoughts like, if this was real, wouldn't it be easier? Or, if they cared, wouldn't they show it? These questions are natural, but they come from the rational mind trying to measure, something that does not operate on linear rules. Soul connections rarely follow straight paths. They move in spirals. They revisit the same themes at deeper levels, each time asking for more honesty, more courage, more integration. What complicates this connection is not a lack of feeling, but the timing of readiness. You are ready to open. They are still learning how. And readiness is not something you can give another person. It must be earned through inner confrontation, through facing fears that have been avoided for years, through choosing vulnerability over self-protection. There are moments when they almost reach out, moments when your name is on their lips, moments when they sit with the phone in their hand, imagining what they would say, but fear interrupts. Fear of saying the wrong thing, fear of not being enough, fear of reopening something they don't yet trust themselves to handle. So they stay silent, hoping time will solve what only courage can. And yet time keeps bringing you back into their awareness. Because unresolved connections do not disappear. They wait, they linger, they resurface when distractions fade. Late at night, early in the morning, in between conversations that feel empty, in relationships that lack depth, you become the quiet comparison they cannot ignore. This is also why signs seem to follow you lately. Not to keep you stuck, but to keep you steady. When you start to doubt your intuition, something appears to remind you that you are not imagining this. A song that speaks directly to your story. A dream where the conversation finally flows. A sudden memory that arrives with emotional clarity instead of pain. These are not meant to pull you backward. They are meant to anchor you in trust. Trust does not mean waiting and suffering. It means staying, connected to yourself while allowing what is meant to return to find its way back naturally. There is a subtle but powerful shift happening within you. You are learning the difference between attachment and alignment. Attachment says, I need this person to be okay. Alignment says, I am okay, and I trust what belongs to me will meet me in truth. That shift changes everything. When you stop chasing clarity and start embodying it, the dynamic transforms. Energetically, something loosens. The pressure lifts. The connection is no longer fueled by anxiety, but by grounded presence. And that is the state in which true reunion becomes possible. Because if they return while you are depleted, doubting or shrinking yourself, the connection would repeat its old pattern. But if they return when you are centered, self-honoring, and emotionally whole, something new can begin. Something healthier. Something mutual. You are not being punished by the delay. You are being prepared. Prepared to receive love without abandoning yourself. Prepared to recognize effort instead of chasing potential. Prepared to meet them not as someone seeking validation, but as someone standing in her own worth. They feel this shift, even if they cannot name it. They sense you pulling your energy back inward. They sense that you are no longer waiting in the same way. And paradoxically, that is what makes the connection feel more real to them. Because now, it is no longer guaranteed. It must be chosen. This is where fear begins to lose its grip, because the possibility of losing you completely becomes real, and reality has a way of cutting through avoidance. The heart starts to speak louder than defense mechanisms. Memories soften, regret surfaces, desire for repair grows. You may feel moments where you suddenly feel calm, almost detached, followed by waves of emotion. That is alignment taking root. You are no longer fighting the connection, but you are no longer losing yourself in it either. You are allowing it to exist without controlling the outcome. That balance is powerful. It signals to the universe that you are ready for truth, whatever form it takes. And truth always responds to readiness. The path between you is not blocked. It is being cleared. Old misunderstandings are dissolving. Internal resistance is weakening. What once felt chaotic is slowly reorganizing itself beneath the surface. You do not need to do anything more right now. No convincing, no explaining, no proving. Just stay present. Stay honest with yourself. Stay open without chasing. The rest is unfolding in its own rhythm. And as this part of the journey continues, you may start to sense it more clearly. Not as longing, but as quiet certainty. A knowing that does not beg for reassurance. A trust that does not need constant signs. Something is moving toward alignment. Not rushed, not forced, but real. There comes a moment when the longing softens into understanding, not because the connection weakens, but because your relationship to it changes. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin to sense, "This is happening for me." That shift is subtle, but it is profound. It is the moment when pain starts turning into wisdom. You are beginning to see that this connection was never meant to consume you. It was meant to reveal you, to strip away what was false, to expose where you abandoned yourself in the past, to teach you the difference between intensity and intimacy, between attachment and devotion, between fantasy and truth. And once that lesson begins to integrate, the suffering loses its grip. You may notice now that your thoughts of them are changing. They are no longer frantic or desperate. They arrive gently, sometimes with warmth, sometimes with clarity, sometimes with a calm acceptance that whatever unfolds must be rooted in authenticity, not fear. This is a sign of emotional maturity forming inside you, and this is where the connection reaches a turning point. Because when one person in a soul bond evolves, the entire dynamic is forced to respond. Energy seeks balance. When you stop chasing answers and start embodying them, the universe adjusts accordingly. What once felt stalled begins to move. What once felt confusing begins to organize itself. They are feeling this too, even if they do not consciously understand why. Your energy is no longer reaching them as need. It reaches them as presence, as absence that speaks, as a calm strength that cannot be manipulated or ignored. And that unsettles them far more than pursuit ever could. Silence has a different meaning now. It is no longer rejection. It is processing. It is confrontation with self. They are being asked by life to look inward, to face the patterns they have relied on to stay. Safe avoidance, emotional distance, control. These strategies once protected them. Now they isolate them. There are moments when they feel the urge to return strongly, followed by moments of hesitation. This inner push and pull is not about you. It is about them standing at the edge of their own growth. Stepping forward means risking vulnerability. Staying back means losing something real. That tension cannot last forever. What is important for you to understand now is this: the outcome of this connection does not depend on how much you hope, but on how deeply you honor yourself. The more you stay aligned with your truth, the clearer the path becomes. Whether that path leads to reunion or release, it will no longer break you. It will strengthen you. But there is something the soul already knows. This connection carries unfinished meaning. Not because it needs drama, but because it requires truth. Words that were never spoken, feelings that were never fully expressed, choices that were delayed out of fear. These things do not disappear. They wait for courage. Jung once said, "Where your fear is, there your task is." Right now, fear is standing in front of both of you, asking to be acknowledged. Yours was to trust your intuition without losing yourself. Theirs is to open their heart without hiding. Both tasks are unfolding, slowly but inevitably. You might sense that the idea of reunion no longer excites you in the same way it once did. Not because you don't care, but because you now desire depth over fantasy. You are no longer willing to accept confusion disguised as fate. You want clarity, presence, effort, and this inner standard is not pushing them away. It is calling them forward. This is where many people misunderstand soul connections. They think they are meant to be endured endlessly. That suffering is proof of depth. But true soul bonds do not exist to trap you in pain. They exist to lead you back to yourself. And then, if aligned to each other in truth, you are stepping into that alignment now. There may be moments ahead where communication opens unexpectedly. A message that feels sincere. A conversation that carries more honesty than before. Or simply an energetic shift where things feel lighter, clearer, less strained. Do not rush these moments. Let them unfold. Authentic reconnection cannot be forced or hurried. And if fear arises in you, fear of being hurt again, fear of hoping again, let it be there without letting it lead. Fear is not a warning here. It is a memory of past pain, not a prediction of future truth. You are not the same person you were when this began. You are stronger, clearer, more grounded. You no longer need to prove your worth through patience. Your worth is already established in how deeply you have grown. Whether they meet you there is their choice, but they will feel the difference. The universe responds to embodiment, not longing, and you are embodying something new now. Self-respect, emotional sovereignty, calm, trust. These qualities shift timelines. They open doors that effort never could. Pay attention to how your body feels when you think of them now. Less tightness, less urgency, more openness. That is alignment. That is the soul settling into its truth. What comes next is not about waiting. It is about allowing life to reveal what is real, allowing love to meet you where you stand, not where you once begged, allowing this connection to either rise into truth or gently dissolve into understanding without resentment. But something tells you it is not finished. Not yet. There is still movement beneath the surface, still courage gathering, still honesty forming, still a conversation waiting for the right moment to be spoken from a place of wholeness, not fear. Stay present, stay grounded, stay true to yourself. The next phase is approaching, and it will ask something different of you. Not endurance, but discernment. There is a quiet strength that begins to form when you know. Longer need reassurance to believe what you feel. It is the strength of inner alignment. You stop scanning the outside world for signs because something inside you has settled. Not settled in resignation, but in trust. Trust that whatever is real will not bypass truth forever. At this stage, the connection no longer feels like a question mark. It feels like a mirror. And mirrors do not lie. They show you exactly where you stand. You see now that this bond was never meant to be chased. It was meant to be met. And meeting can only happen when both people are standing fully in themselves. You may notice that you are no longer tempted to explain your value to anyone. You no longer feel the urge to justify your emotions or defend the depth of your heart. You know who you are. You know how you love. And you know that real love does not require confusion as proof. This inner grounding changes the entire energetic landscape, because when you stop bending yourself to keep a connection alive, the connection is forced to respond honestly. Either it rises to meet you, or it reveals where it cannot. And both outcomes are forms of truth. They are feeling this shift more clearly now. The space you once filled with effort is no longer available in the same way. Not because you are closing your heart, but because you are no longer abandoning yourself. Your presence has become clean, undistorted by anxiety, undiluted by fear. And that kind of presence is confronting. It brings their unresolved emotions to the surface. Emotions they tried to outrun by staying busy, by keeping distance, by pretending they were unaffected. But the heart does not forget what felt real. It does not obey denial forever. There are moments now when they feel the weight of what was almost lost. Not dramatically, quietly. In still moments, when distractions fade and honesty sneaks in, they remember how safe they felt with you, how seen, how genuine, and the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. This is where responsibility begins to awaken. Not guilt, responsibility. Responsibility for choices not made, words not spoken, courage delayed. And responsibility is the doorway to change. Jung said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Right now, that sentence is hovering over both of you. You have already begun choosing differently. You chose growth instead of fixation, integrity instead of chasing, self-respect instead of self-sacrifice. They are standing at the edge of that same choice. This does not mean they will rush toward you immediately. Growth is not dramatic. It is deliberate. It requires dismantling old identities, letting go of defenses that once felt necessary, admitting vulnerability where control once ruled. What matters now is not speed, but direction. And the direction is shifting. You may sense moments of energetic closeness, even without communication. Sudden emotional warmth, a sense of calm instead of longing, a feeling of knowing rather than hoping. This is not imagination, it is resonance. When two people are aligned at the soul level, distance does not sever connection. It only delays expression. But expression is coming, not as chaos, not as confusion, but as clarity. And when clarity arrives, it will not ask you to shrink. You are no longer the version of yourself who would accept breadcrumbs, disguised as fate. You are no longer impressed by potential without action. You now recognize that love must be lived, not just felt. This is why the universe has slowed everything down, because anything built before this level of awareness would have collapsed under its own imbalance. One heart open, one heart guarded, one ready, one afraid. That dynamic could only produce pain. What is being prepared now is different. If they return, it will be with intention, not curiosity, not loneliness. Intention with accountability, with presence, with a willingness to meet you in the open space you now inhabit. And if they do not, you will not be broken. Because the greatest gift this connection gave you was not a promise of reunion. It was a return to yourself, a deeper self-trust, a clearer inner voice, a stronger emotional spine. You now know the difference between chemistry and compatibility of the soul. You know the difference between longing and alignment. You know the difference between waiting and honoring timing without self-betrayal. This is not the end of your story with love. It is the refinement of it, and whatever comes next will meet you at the level you now stand. You may feel a sense of calm confidence rising, a feeling that says, I will be okay either way. That is not detachment. That is wholeness. That is the soul no longer bargaining for love, but allowing it. Pay attention to how your life is expanding again. New clarity, new energy, new inspiration. This is not distraction from the connection. It is proof that you are no longer stuck inside it. You are walking alongside it, not beneath it. That changes everything, because love that is meant for you does not require you to disappear. And love that is real will recognize you when you stand fully as yourself. Something is preparing to resolve, not with force, but with honesty, not with urgency, but with readiness. Stay open, stay rooted, stay discerning. The final unfolding is near. There is a moment when the soul no longer asks what will happen, because it understands why everything happened the way it did. This is that moment. Not dramatic, not loud, just deeply settling. You feel it as a quiet certainty in your chest, a knowing that does not need reassurance, explanation, or signs to survive. You have crossed from questioning into clarity. At this level, you are no longer clinging to an outcome. You are aligned with truth, and truth has a rhythm of its own. You see now that the delays were not punishments. They were protections. If this connection had unfolded earlier, before both of you were shaped by growth, it would have collapsed under the weight of unhealed patterns. Love requires space to mature. Souls require time to become strong enough to hold what they recognize. You were being taught how to stand without shrinking, how to love without losing yourself, how to trust intuition without surrendering discernment. These lessons were not optional. They were necessary. And now something has changed. You are no longer reaching for this person from a place of need. You are standing in your own center. That shift alone alters the entire energetic field between you. Because love that is meant to last does not form through pursuit. It forms through resonance. They feel this resonance now more clearly than ever. The fear that once controlled them is no longer as convincing. The stories they told themselves to avoid vulnerability are cracking. Silence no longer feels safe. Distance no longer feels protective. It feels like loss, and loss awakens courage. Not the impulsive kind, but the honest kind. There is a realization forming in them that connection like this is rare, that you cannot replace depth with distraction, that what they felt with you was not intensity alone, but recognition. And recognition changes a person permanently. They may not express it perfectly at first. Growth is not polished. It is sincere. If they return, it will not be to test the waters. It will be to stand in them, to meet you without masks, to speak from a place that has been stripped of excuses. And if they hesitate a little longer, it does not undo what is already set in motion. Seeds do not stop growing because you cannot see them yet. Roots form before anything breaks the surface. You are no longer waiting for them to choose you. You are choosing yourself. And that choice is what makes reunion possible without imbalance. Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Both of you have been doing exactly that, facing the shadows that once dictated behavior, bringing awareness where avoidance once lived. That work cannot be rushed, and it cannot be faked. This is why, if and when the reunion happens, it will feel different. Calmer, clearer, more grounded. Not driven by fear of loss, but by desire for truth. You will recognize it immediately, not by words alone, but by energy. There will be presence, consistency, effort that does not need to be demanded. You will not wonder where you stand. You will feel it. And if, for some reason, life chooses a different resolution, you will still stand whole. That is the ultimate sign of alignment. Because the purpose of this connection was never to leave you empty. It was to awaken your capacity for depth, truth, and self-respect. And that purpose has already been fulfilled. Now, anything that returns does so by choice, not by obligation. The universe is not asking you to wait blindly. It is asking you to trust what has already been built within you. To trust that love aligned with your soul will not require self-abandonment. To trust that what is real does not disappear when you stop chasing it. You are no longer operating from fear of losing. You are operating from knowing your worth. That is why the timing is finally aligning. Because timing is not about clocks. It is about readiness. And readiness has arrived. Pay attention to how peaceful you feel when you imagine both outcomes. That peace is your confirmation. You are no longer dependent on the connection to feel complete. You are complete, and the connection must meet you there or step aside. That is power. That is balance. That is love without illusion. Whatever unfolds next will not confuse you. It will not drain you. It will not diminish you. It will be honest. And honesty is the highest form of love. If this message reached you at the exact moment you needed it, trust that your soul already knows the answer to the question you've been asking. Is it time to let go or time to trust? Only one of those feels calm. Only one feels grounded. Only one feels true.